Hey, Wire Monkeys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Cabling. This episode, we're doing another episode in the series of industry icons, and this one is only 35 years old. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by apprentices, installers, technicians, project foremen, project managers, estimators, customers. We're connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being created? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms, would you mind giving us a 5-star rating? Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm that helps us educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? You know I do a live stream on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a bunch of other places where you get to ask your favorite RCDD, and you know that's me. Don't try to pretend like I'm not your favorite RCDD. Questions on installation, certification, design, project management, even career path questions. But I can hear you now. But Chuck, I'm driving my truck at 6 p.m. on Thursday. I'm coming up from work. I don't want to get into an accident. Okay. I record them, and you can watch them at your convenience. And you can find those recordings at letstalkcabling.com. And finally, while this show is free and will always remain free, if you find value in this content, would you mind clicking on that QR code right there? You can buy me a cup of coffee. You can even schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me, after hours, of course. And I'm always looking for corporate sponsorship as well, as long as you realize this is a vendor-neutral show. So today, we have the privilege of diving into the remarkable journey of Akram Khalis, affectionately known as AK. Now, if you don't know him, he's the Chief Technology Officer of MHT Technologies. Now, he's got to be one of the youngest industry icons that I've had on my show. And his story is one of relentless dedication and innovation, starting from his formative years in Casablanca, Morocco, which kind of goes to show just how widely my show spans. Now, unlike the romanticized version of Casablanca portrayed in classic cinema, his journey is marked by rigorous study and a thirst for knowledge. That's why I think him and I get along so well, because you know me, my thing is knowledge is power. I'm always hungry for knowledge. He was selected as one of only 4 students for an academic experiment where he embarked on a path that would shape his future in engineering. Now listen to this. He has a degree in mechanical. He has a degree in electrical and software disciplines. These the trifecta, the rare trifecta that fuels his visionary approach. And his journey from founding multiple successful companies to co-founding the groundbreaking smart building software solutions Inspector. I have to tell me if I said that right. Inspector, there you go. Is a testament to his entrepreneurial spirit and his drive for innovation. But his story isn't just about his personal achievements. This is another reason why I like this guy. It's about leadership. It's about mentorship. He is a true servant leader, and he cultivates a culture of collaboration and growth within his team, harnessing teachable moments to help propel others to greatness. So join us as we explore AK's remarkable career from his humble beginnings to his pioneering smart building technology. AK, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Chuck, it's my pleasure. Really, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for putting me on the show.
Not a problem. Like I said, usually when I have industry icons, they're kind of like old guys like me, older, lots of gray hair. You're definitely going to stick out as the unique industry icon. But when I got sent your journey, I was like, how could this guy not be an industry icon at 35? It just thrills me that the industry is being left in capable hands of people like you. That just absolutely thrills me. And we'll get into your servant leadership in here in a little bit, but I think that's part of being a leader is getting other people to see what your vision is and portraying that vision in a way that they want to be a part of that ride. And
absolutely,
that's you to a T, man. Right. So let's start off with, what is the most pivotal moment in your journey from when you began as one of those 40 students to becoming a chief technology officer for MHT?
Yeah, really, it started, Chuck, when when the selection happened in Morocco out of middle school, go into high school, and the program really wanted individuals to really take on the responsibility of being multifunction engineers, and that really takes on a lot when you're still a teenager, trying to do everything you can to even focus on what you want. And this program really embeds discipline into your brain at an early stage, focusing not only on your education of high school, but now you're a responsible individual that you will graduate with an engineering degree. Quite frankly, it doesn't mean a lot when to a teenager. Neither that it did to me, right? But just the opportunity of living it, breathing it, and being part of that group allows you to kind of figure out that, oh boy, this is reality, right? I am going to graduate just another individual that has engineering skill set. And what does that mean in practicality? And all of these thoughts start going into your brain. It's almost bringing your your 30s back to your teenage age. So start thinking, what do I want to do at an early age? And that really creates a discipline and creativity in the brain where you're continuously focusing on how do I do better. And the program was really, it had its guidelines, right? You couldn't just pass with a C because that was not an option. If you did score below B, you would go back to your high school degree and you'll become just a teenager. So the pressure was on at an early stage where you have to think through all of that. And really, that's what stick on to me. It's more of like I understand how to become disciplined and create that discipline, and continue doing it every single time I can.
Well, you know what they say, right? Pressure turns coal into diamonds, right? So there you go. And I think again, and another reason why I wanted to bring you on is because obviously I'm a boomer, right? I hate to say that, but I am. And I run around in circles with people who are boomers. And I hear it all the time. Oh, this younger generation, they don't want to learn. One of the things I learned through doing the podcast, they absolutely want to learn. They hunger for knowledge. The difference is they want to learn in a way that learning works for them, which may not be the same way that that I was taught as a that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on. And then the other reason is because you got that trifecta, right? I mean, you're making me feel like I'm only a third accomplished because you have 3 degrees. Well, technically, I have 2 degrees now that I think about it, because I have one in marketing and one in business management, but they kind of blend together. But you have degrees in mechanical and electrical and software engineering, right? So those are 3 pretty diverse skill sets. How do you integrate that in your disciplines when you're creating solutions at MHT?
Yeah, really, it's you think about any product that's built electronically. Usually, you have a mechanical discipline to create a physical aspect. You have the firmware aspect of it, which is creating some sort of logic to make it do something, move, and create some business logic. And then, of course, you have a software element that what the user can see and functionality of the product. Really, when anytime you create products, you have to have all these discipline, understand the scope of work. And fortunately for me, it's all in one brain, right? I still have those mental battles, right? It's 3 individuals trying to understand how to put that together. But when it came to MHT and creating product, the aspect of understanding the whole entire process all at once allows us to really focus on creating product that not only one reliable and scalable, right? Because a lot of times when building products, each individual or each silo might create it on their own of how they see it, right? And it requires obviously product managers to kind of steer the ship and lead them towards the product that they think they want. But when it's self-serving, when it's all in one brain, because you can make changes on the fly, if you will, and I try to accommodate certain things, whether it's just as small as changing a frame or changing a line of code to achieve what the mechanical is supposed to do, all the way to making a new feature on software that trickles down all the way to a mechanical aspect.
Very cool. So, for those, I'm aware of MHT because I function in the area of POE and POE consortium and stuff, and I've heard of MHT and stuff. Can you just give us maybe like the 30, 60-second, I don't want to say sales pitch, but for someone who doesn't know MHT, what do they do?
Absolutely. So MHT is a smart building technology that focuses on taking sensor feedback and turning them into an actionable item to create a smart building solution that focuses on energy savings, productivity, and of course, sustainability. That's really what we do.
So let me ask you this, right? Because the larger part of my audience, and this is not one of the pre-written questions, but I know you well enough. I know you'll be able to ace this. A large part of my audience are people like me, people who are tradesmen, or tradeswomen, right? I don't want to say, I don't want to be, I want to be inclusive there. They're out there pulling cable, stuff like that, and the only exposure they ever have to somebody who has, a degree in mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. Generally, we don't function around the areas with software engineering, but usually those people aren't the people who have those kinds of degrees. And this is not you by any way. You're very charismatic. Most people, and you probably know where I'm going with this, right? They there's a reason they excel in those areas, and they're just not really good at communication with, or com- communicating is, really means talking to somebody at the level that they're on. So sometimes that means you got to kind of, how can I say this without offending my people who listen to my show? Um, um, Dumb it down a little bit, right? Because I had an instructor one time. He was teaching at this level, and I was at that level. I learned nothing in that class, right? So as a since you have all these multiple degrees, and in these very highly technical fields, what tip would you give somebody like me or somebody listening by audience? How can we communicate to somebody when they're talking above our level to say, hey, can you rephrase that a little bit? What would be a good way to approach that?
I think it's really taking it to an example level. Engineers thinks of logic, and I think relating it to an example that they can understand, it really hits home for a lot of engineers. So creating this, the rephrasing the question to an example that you want to see gives them more of an insight what you're looking for, and I think that translate right back to their own language, and they can bring you back to what they really mean.
That's an excellent example. Matter of fact, that's if you listen to any episode of my podcast, I teach in stories for that
Yeah.
exact same reason, because I bring complex subjects like, bonding and grounding and certification and qualification and project management. It can be very complex, nowhere near as complex as the stuff that you're dealing with. But for people in my audience, that's complex. And what I do is I bring it down, and I bring it into a story, so that way they can kind of understand, kind of what we're talking about. It breaks very complex subjects down. So I'm glad to hear you say that. Now you founded multiple successful companies, and you hold several patents at 35. Again, making me feel like I'm only part timing it here, right? What drives your entrepreneurial spirit, and how do you balance that innovation with practicality?
It's really the entrepreneurship grew out of AK when I came out of high school and I came to the States. Coming to the States, finding out that I have to go back to engineering because I had to take the degree to comply with the standards here. Although I had a certificate of engineering that was from Morocco that claimed that I am an engineer, allowed me to think about what else can I do when it comes to solving problems. So the fact that I can take a product, physically build it, put some software in it, put some firmware in it, and make it functional, I had to really now start thinking about solving problems and what problems am I solving, and how do I turn that into a business case. So there, when I started my journey, the first company I made was what's probably known now as an Uber, and it came from necessity, and I think that's what drove the entrepreneurship in my opinion. Wife at the time was, we were still going through college and going through our business, and I was a limousine driver. And I had a business opportunity where I would be getting inbound marketing sales calls and someone that wants a ride. Um, she didn't have any experience on figuring out what the estimation of the ride should be. And that drove me to write a software program that takes destinations and origins and creates just a dollar amount. And she would answer the phone and say, "Where are you going from? To?" And it gives them a dollar amount. Essentially what Uber does today, and Lyft and all these companies. And the idea is if you can turn the problem into a solution and the skill set allows you to do it, that's really entrepreneurship. Every business is just solving a problem for someone else, and you get monetary value for that service or product that you do.
How many patents do you have?
Uh, Currently three that are utilities, and there are a few pending. I have four pending right now.
Oh wow! So at some point you may have up to 7 patents.
That's correct.
Wow!
Well,
Holy smokes!
we're just gonna keep it going
Hey,
every
there
year.
you go. Well, one of the things I get, people like me out pulling cable and stuff, we get kind of looked down on because, we're just knuckle dragging cable people. But, we come up with, ways to build a better mousetrap sometimes. Right. So if there's somebody listening to the show that they've been out there pulling cable, let's say they come up with some new widget and they think, man, I need to sell this. Can you just kind of give us a quick walkthrough on the patent process?
Absolutely. I learned this from a mentor of mine. His idea of a patent, the first patent I had was a joint venture with him. And I never forget this. The gentleman called has over 20 patents. And the idea of a patent is if you're teaching something to the world that's unique, that's really a patent. So a lot of times ideas are dime a dozen. There's a few ideas are all over the place. But if you can think of a way that you're creating, you're not think don't think about it creating a product. Don't think about it as you're creating a service. Think about you're teaching something new that the world never knew. That's really what the definition of a patent. And usually, if you can hit that, you'll be able to achieve or to get granted a patent. Now, of course, there are nuances of like claiming it and having the right attorneys to create that process. But it really comes down to the basic knowing that you're teaching something new to the public that has not been done before.
And that patent process pretty much protects your idea, right? Keeps other people from stealing it.
Correct, and there's monetary value to it, right? As we all know, there's plenty of ways to protect that patent with the patent attorney, and of course now it turns into a proprietary thing that applies to you. But it's really a lot of times it's a proud moment, right? Think about the recognition that it gets. So I would encourage everyone that has an idea, don't be shy of just turning it into a product. That's one way of doing it, but think about how is it really uniquely changing the world.
Right.
If you can answer that question and know that you actually did that, either whether it speeds up services, speeds up products, and allows others to do the job faster, cheaper, and better, that's really a unique idea, and you can turn it around into a patent.
Yeah, excellent. So I get asked that question all the time, and since I've never had held a patent, I mean, I've only known people who have had them. I've never done one myself. I want to talk about aha moments. My aha moment was when one of my mentors sat me down one day and said, "Chuck, you have some huge potential, but you need to quit treating this thing as a job and treat it as a career." And that was that aha moment that made me realize, instead of counting down the days, the hours, the minutes to Friday at 5 p.m., if I was treated like a career, I would make more money and be able to do more things and get to see more stuff, right? Could you share your aha moment in your career that significantly influenced your approach to entrepreneurship or technology?
Yeah, the real aha moment would be really when I sold the software business that I had for the transportation company. I didn't. It wasn't millions of dollars. No, I'm not part of Uber. No, I'm not none of that or any of those services. But I was able to, when I saw the opportunity that I can help someone create a product or services that helps them create business, and I was paid for it. So that really what turns the wheel for me. So I can do this again, and I just have an idea that I turn into a product or service and be able to give it out to someone that can use it and leverage it. I would get paid for that. Oh, I can do this all day long, right? And you just keep going. And that was the aha moment of like, now I know what the skill set is.
Yeah, yeah. That's like my I'm waiting for my next aha moment. Well, actually, my next one was actually the podcast. That was my next aha moment. I'm waiting for the next aha moment, which helps me find a way to leverage the podcast. So I'm still working on that one, but I'll get there. Um, so like you said, MHT has a lot to do with like sensor based technology and smart building solutions, right? What role do you believe that emerging technologies like IoT and sensor based feedback plays in the future of smart buildings?
Yeah, I think so. Because MHT takes sensor feedback and turns it into an actionable item, the real question is the how, right? It's not the what for us; it's the how, and the how is over a Power over Ethernet technology. I think the understanding of Power over Ethernet is just one cable drives the power and data. Why is that important in a smart building? Well, if I can achieve delivering power to a device and receiving data back from it, I create the sensor mesh network that takes all this information and turns it into actionable item. In a smart building solution, that's required. There's no such thing as a smart building without a sensor feedback into an actionable item. So with Power over Ethernet or with the product of IoT, you can turn this into a real smart building that takes all this information and helps contribute to the end goal. That could be saving energy, creating productive and sustainable environment. So really, while we're putting all this technology together, the end goal is really to create an autonomous building that reacts on its own without humans.
So the whole smart building industry, right? I mean, it's actually part of the low voltage industry. I mean, are we talking slow growth, exponential growth? Do you see this thing exploding? If there's somebody out here listening to the show sitting on the fence and they're right now they're just pulling voice and data cabling, maybe a few light PoE projects, maybe like PoE to an access point or something. And a good company is going to try to put their eggs in multiple baskets, right? And they see this whole smart building things, right? What's the future? I mean, is it sun bright or is it a warm fuzzy day? Where's it going?
So I'd say, the buzzword right now is AI, right? So how do we get to AI and smart buildings? Well, AI doesn't function without data. So to me, in order to create a smart building, you have to have multiple data points that you can take and then leverage it and use AI into it. So with a power over Ethernet technology, to lights, to shades, to access points, to your point, to voice over IP, and all these devices, not only creates that tunnel of data back so you can actually apply AI to it if that's the need, and that we know that's the real changing points that we're all seeing right now. But it's really the future proofing. When it's done over a power over Ethernet that's standard based, that can scale over time, it allows you to really do it and sit back and relax and use the technology and the infrastructure for your own benefit without worrying about, am I putting up something that's proprietary that, every time I have to do adds and moves and changes, there's change orders and things of that nature. So with the technology itself, you're leaving yourself with a room to have attributes, and those attributes requires really security, tagging, which is obviously open platform, so we're not required to specific vendor or specific technology, and that's all done in an IEEE standard, and Power over Ethernet is an IEEE 802
Mm-hmm.
standard. So for us is really just enabling that smart building using a technology that's been around and proven. It's just how we scale it to a building level.
So you would say so if somebody's sitting on the fence, it's something they should invest in, like maybe training, learning, products and stuff like that, because there's a bright future.
Absolutely. I think, the future is there. And I encourage, go into the PWE Consortium for trainings to understand and follow up on standards and committee standards to understand where is it going. And I would say the time is now, really, and I mean it. Why? The knowledge is there. It's just a matter, and it's not a product base. It's not a history base. We know Power over Ethernet is a technology that has proven itself over many years. It's not a year or two, etc. So it's about how do we implement it and who jumps on board so they become the expert when there's more implementations and of course there's more choices. But I would encourage it now than later.
Yeah, because if you jump into it now, when you compare it to jumping into like say voice and data cabling now, well that foundation's already been set. We're on the 17th floor now in our industry, but the building smart building solutions, you be getting in at the ground floor, and you'll help to shape that industry, and no better way to learn is to actually help shape it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're a accumulation of our experiences, right? And one of the people always kind of ask me is, Chuck, how come you're so smart about lots of different things? It's because I'm old. It's because I'm old, right? I mean, I've done everything from pulling cable to roofing to mechanical to I've even been a firefighter and EMT. And so when I teach things like fire
Wow.
stopping stuff like that, I pull from all those diverse experiences, right? And it's not because I've sat in school to do all this stuff, although I have, but it's because of my experiences, right? Now, your experiences, you have a very diverse from Morocco to New York. There's cultural differences there. There's way people approach business and stuff. How has that cultural background influenced your perspective on technology and leadership?
It was very helpful to come from a different background. It actually an eye opener to understand. To me, it was different culture, right? Although it's still New York is home for me. But it's understanding, maybe having a broader understanding of how diversity and culture work together to a business, right? Where when we're doing business, we're doing human to human level, and
Right.
that human to human might be someone that you share the same visions with. It could be diversity in culture, it could be diversity in other factors, and I really think that helped a lot when talking to individuals, understanding their needs, and really focusing on helping them rather than selling them on anything, right?
Right.
The idea is to give them an opportunity to speak about their pains and talk through what's the opportunity, what are they looking for, and see if there's a marriage and a fit to help them with that. And I think really that's where it comes down to understanding the culture first before you actually go into business.
And the world's getting smaller every day. I mean, with the virtual workforce now, and like I said, it really struck home with me with the podcast because when I first created the podcast, I kind of expected just kind of like a U.S. based kind of audience, but I have people from Sri Lanka to India to, you know, from Dubai. I mean, they listen to my show, and it's just kind of that's why I'm trying to reach more subjects out on a global thing than just U.S. based. So it's a small world. It truly is. One of the things when I read the bio for you that really struck out and rang a bell with me was servant leadership, right? Um, Before I ask you the question, first tell me, what do you think is a servant leader?
Absolutely. So, Chuck, a servant leader is really someone that sits back and enable others to learn and grow. If you're a servant leader, you're not sitting there and asking someone, you know, micromanaging or sitting there and really, you got to let the individuals learn on their own, and you're just there to guide them through the process. And I've seen it, the difference obviously between the leaders and managers, and I think we've seen a lot of memes and in a lot of different places of how those two personas shape each other, right? It's a learning curve for all of us. No one can say I reached the level of being a leader, right? You're always
Right.
learning, even as a leader. And you just have to understand, if you take it back to the basic level, is you're an enabler. You're just enabling development of your team, of your folks, of your peers to get them to a stage where they want to be. And whether that's stopping them from going one direction and making them go to a different direction and communicating that with them, or just letting them be in the same direction they're heading because it's what they want, and let them be enabled and for the growth for their own individual
Yeah,
growth.
that you described that perfectly. As the way I describe it when people ask me what is a servant leader, is I tell people, look, I am at the same level you are. I'm just one mouse who found some cheese, and I'm trying to show you how you can find that same cheese that I found. That's
Yep.
that. In a short, quick, simple.
That's
So
another story. That's perfect.
I told
There
you
you go.
I told you I'm story based. I told you, right?
There you go.
So as a servant leader, what strategies have you employed to mentor and empower the team members at MHT?
Yeah, it's really about culture when it comes to companies. I think developing a real culture for the company, it allows us to grow further. At the end of the day, the individuals, we look at it, our time spent at work, it's a third of your time, right? Especially a third of your day. And if you're going to spend that time being at a company that has a culture that's not where you want to be, you might not have the right individuals that wants to stay there. So I would start with the culture, and then really open communication. Having peers communicate with each other is most important to me than communicating back upstream to a manager and creating that bottleneck. You want the individual to be able to communicate with each other at a level in order for them to solve problems and communicate to even just understand each other first, and enabling that, not just by saying, well, figure it out, and just point them at each other and saying, you guys have to figure it out, I gotta go. Is really, sit back and listen. You might be in the room, but just sit back and listen, let them talk to each other. You might mediate here and there, but that's really what your job is to figure out where this is going. Is it shaping the way you think it should be? And if it's not, you just guiding it.
Yeah.
I really, I have children, so I can relate to that part where it comes to, your children, you're just enabling them. It's a big toolbox. You're just putting tools in there. And at one point, they're just going to go away with a toolbox and say, Daddy taught me this and Mommy taught me that. And
How old
because
are
you're
your
not there.
How old are your kids?
8 and 4.
Okay, so there will come a point in time. See, I've got adult children now,
Okay.
and there will come a point in time where your relationship changes with your kids, right? Because at the beginning you're teaching them the foundational stuff. Then
Absolutely.
at some point you have to trust in that you laid a good foundation, and then they can make the decisions on themselves. Because if you try to treat a 15 or 16-year-old kid the way you treat a 4-year-old or an 8-year-old, you're gonna be butting your head up against the wall. Just leave
Yep.
it at that. Leave it at that.
Absolutely. And
Leave it at that.
exactly. And it's 100% correct, Chuck. It's understanding the individuals that you're talking to
Yeah.
and how you communicate the message.
Absolutely. It's funny you said that because I know some of my kids listen to my podcast. They don't listen because they want to learn about cabling. They dad, right? And I remember because I raised 6 kids, and this helped me develop my skills as a leader, right? So 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls, right? And let's just give you a quick example. I have 3 boys. All 3 of my boys were into skateboarding, and one of them, and now the oldest one loves skateboarding. It was his life. The other two they only skateboarded because their older brother skateboarded, right? And they wanted to hang out with the older brother. So if they got in trouble, right, and I had to punish them, well, my oldest son, I'd take away his skateboard. My youngest son, I might take away maybe his Game Boy. And my youngest son would be like, that's not fair. You took away his Game Boy, but you have to learn what people's emotional currency is, right?
Yes.
And that helped me as a leader, as I was a project manager, because I realized not everybody's motivated by the same thing. You know, when you're managing crews, there are some people who are motivated by money. There are some people who are motivated by title. There are some people who are just motivated by just every once in a while, pat on the back. Good job. Right. You know, you got to find out what their emotional currency is, because no two people are the same. No two people are the same.
Absolutely.
AK, absolute pleasure having you on, my friend. And I can't wait to see how you shape this industry in the future, my friend.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you inviting me to the podcast. It's a pleasure, Chuck. It really is.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Talk about impressive. The age of 35, 3 degrees, 3 patents, 4 patents on the way. This industry is in good hands. Makes me feel like I didn't do enough. What are you doing? Remember, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.